When you see this symbol, you know you're watching television that's educational and informational. The More You Know on NBC.
Hi everyone, I'm Dreyer, and we are heading out to explore Europe's wild places. This is Earth Odyssey. Coming up, these feisty fellows are fighting for the high ground in a battle royale. And for this little one, keeping safe means keeping perfectly still. Plus, what it's like to live semi-wild in the south of France. And this is no ordinary predator, but just who is eating whom? These wildlife stories and much more just ahead on Earth Odyssey. From the mountains to the Mediterranean Sea, Europe is home to a surprising number of wild animals. Thousands of years of civilization have diminished the great forests, but high in the alpine woods, one species has mastered the art of survival by knowing exactly when to move and when to keep perfectly still. For more than 700 miles, the European Alps form a continuous chain of peaks and chasms. Temperature fluctuations can exceed 140 degrees Fahrenheit between sun and shade. To survive in such a demanding environment, animals have evolved improvements in the performance of their blood, lungs, and heart. In winter, at high altitudes, the difference between an animal's body temperature and the outside temperature can be more than 160 degrees Fahrenheit. The thick fur of the ibex, an iconic wild goat, changes with the seasons and the temperature. By raising and lowering the hairs of its fur coat, the animal varies the amount of trapped air it contains, effectively regulating the heat that escapes to the outside. In the long months when food sources are both rare and also have little nutritional value, anything that allows the saving of heat can prove to be vital. Even foxes living at high altitudes have a much thicker coat. A European red fox can sit for hours protected from the cold. He can survive temperatures as low as -5 degrees Fahrenheit. But to do that, he'll have to hide his face, the part least well covered, beneath his tail. It must save energy for a style of hunting that is highly demanding, wandering continuously in search of something to put in its mouth. Driven by hunger, he's cautious, but always curious. This vole has dozens of hiding places and escape routes under the snow. The red fox's hearing is sharp enough to hear the rodents burrowing underground, but not today. Disappointments are not unusual in the scarcity of winter. But it's not enough for an animal just to grow a thicker coat when it snows. A change of season brings a transformation in the environment so dramatic that one inhabitant of high altitudes needs to alter its physical appearance by changing color. The alpine hare morphs from summer gray to winter white. Only the tips of its ears remain black. In his winter white coat, the hare becomes less visible to predators, but even more importantly, it is better insulated. Each individual white hair on its fur coat has microscopic spaces filled with air, acting as insulation. This extra warmth really helps at dusk, the animal's most active period. The cold at night becomes more penetrating. Thick fur on his feet functions like snowshoes to keep the hare moving on top of the deep snow. The survival of this alpine animal depends on the protection offered by a coat that must be kept perfectly groomed, even down to removing tiny balls of snow that remain attached. When day breaks, the hare must redouble its attention. Even though he's camouflaged in white and highly alert, the slightest of movements can be spotted by the most efficient predator in this environment. The golden eagle. Unlike rabbits, hares live entirely above ground without a burrow for protection. But today is this hare's lucky day. He'll keep his place high in the Alps, waiting for the warmth of spring. Coming up, on France's Mediterranean coast, flying manes and thundering hooves mean an ancient equine challenge is about to begin. And after a wildfire, this Portuguese native has an unusual survival strategy. Plus, for one animal, the highest cliff is the safest place to raise a family. Don't go away. Earth Odyssey will be right back.
We'll be right back to The More You Know on NBC. We now return to The More You Know on NBC.
The Mediterranean Sea is replenished by more than 2.5 million gallons of river water every second, mostly from the Rhone River. The river flows south from the Alps through Switzerland and France before reaching the coast. There, it forms the Camargue, a brackish wetland. The size of New York City with its lagoons, marshes, and grasslands, it's a unique home for more than 500 different animals. Here, salt flats can turn into grassy marshes and long, sweeping beaches, full of salt-resistant plants that are perfect grazing for those built for this terrain. This ancient breed is perfectly adapted for life in the Delta. The small, gentle Camargue horses have lived here for millennia, away from the predatory wolves and lynx that roam farther inland. They've evolved the ability to close their nostrils to keep out the salty water as they feed on the tough, nutritious plants that thrive in the salt marshes. But in this summer heat, the dominant stallion and his herd also need to drink. Although most freshwater pools have disappeared, the stallion knows a reliable water source. On the far side of the delta, long legs help the horses power through the tidal marshland. Their wide hooves are uniquely adapted to the boggy ground. Unlike other horses, they can stand for hours in the marsh water without injury. It turns out this horse's favorite watering hole is no secret. Another male has beaten them to it. This lone stallion hasn't just come for a drink. He's looking for a mate. That means competing with the herd's alpha male. But the ruling stallion is battle-hardened and weighs more than 800 pounds. He won't give up without a fight. These sturdy horses have a compact body with powerful chests. Biting and kicking, these clashes can inflict serious injuries. But there can only be one king. Defeated, the outsider retreats. It won't be the last challenge for this stallion's crown. But with his herd secured, he finally enjoys the drink he came for. The Camargue horses have inspired locals and visitors for thousands of years. Napoleon chose them to serve in the French army. And they closely resemble an extinct Stone Age horse found in famous cave paintings. Today, some of them live wild in a protected biosphere. Others are semi-feral and used as working horses. But all of them are admired here as a symbol of resilience, sturdy creatures flourishing in an unforgiving landscape. Coming up, you can't tell by looking, but this unusual meat eater is biding its time before its next meal. And just how do these expert mountain climbers do it? When Earth Odyssey returns.
We'll be right back to The More You Know on NBC. We now return to The More You Know on NBC.
In the arid Mediterranean region, drought and wildfire can threaten a fragile ecosystem. But some organisms thrive after fire and heat, including a very unusual plant that's actually a predator. Take a look. As weather patterns change, many parts of Spain and Portugal now go for months without rain. And as summer temperatures rise, grass and woodlands can ignite. The blazing scrub can burn at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And while fires are devastating to many species, some depend on it. This land that was scorched by fire a year ago has had a revival. The extreme heat triggers Portuguese sundew seeds to germinate. This resilient plant is found almost exclusively on land decimated by fire. But the poor quality of the soil means this plant must get its nutrients elsewhere. So it releases a sweet smell, luring insects to come closer. But that can be a fatal mistake. The Portuguese sundew is a carnivore, a perfect predatory plant. Sticky globules are secreted from special glands, and the more the insect moves, the more ensnared in the plant it becomes. Enzymes dissolve the victim so the plant can absorb its nutrients. Digestion can take several days. It might be nutritious, but it's not a pretty sight. Portuguese sundew prefer dry regions where fires come every year. But most predatory plants prefer moist or tropical habitats. In fact, there are more than 700 other carnivorous plant species on Earth just waiting for their next meal. Coming up, learning to scale a sheer cliff isn't easy, even for a billy goat. But the view is magnificent. The big picture is still to come when Earth Odyssey returns.
We'll be right back to The More You Know on NBC. We now return to The More You Know on NBC.
Surrounding the species-rich waters of the Mediterranean, 28,500 miles of coastline curve around 22 countries across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Rugged shorelines, isolated coves, pristine beaches, and towering sea cliffs define the western Mediterranean coast. Living here requires climbing skills, usually adapted for mountains. But it's the perfect seasonal territory for the Iberian ibex. A mature male and his female herd are usually found high up in the surrounding mountain ranges. But it's winter, and the coast's warmer weather and vegetation have brought these wild goats here. Plants here are specially adapted to the saline environment and are high in salt, an essential but often hard to find mineral. The dramatic landscape is also a safe place to raise their young, as few predators can scale the cliffs. These huge horns advertise the alpha male's status. The breeding season is almost over, but there's still time for a challenge. The 170-pound male patrols his territory. Short legs and large, flexible hooves allow this wild goat to climb the sea cliffs with ease. His hooves actually expand and retract like suction cups, helping him get a foothold. From up here, he can survey his territory and look for trespassers. A young bachelor. This means one more fight for the alpha male to hold on to his position. The battle-worn male keeps the high ground, forcing his opponent downhill. He's ruled these cliffs for more than a decade and is determined not to give it all up today. The young contender is outmatched. This alpha male will keep his breeding rights, at least until the same time next year. Until then, he'll live alone or in a bachelor herd of males called bucks or billy goats. It's the females, known as does or nanny goats, who feed and lead the kids throughout the year so that this venerable species can keep its majestic place in the Iberian Mountains.
Today, we've seen how the wilder parts of Europe still nurture a remarkable variety of animals. Increasingly, Europe's native species are finding new life and shelter in designated nature preserves and habitats. Thanks for watching. I'm Dreyer. Please join us again next week on Earth Odyssey.